Today, let's talk about the future of the United States and the future of our world. Where are we heading? Today, I want to use astrology to help you understand the energy pattern. I also want to incorporate some messages I've been receiving from my spirit guides. Stay with me. Welcome back to Choosing Gratitude. I'm Karen from ChoosingGratitude.net, and on this channel we talk about everything related to manifesting your dream life. So if you're new here, make sure you give this video a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and click that notification bell. This video is not just about the United States. This is about where our world is going, okay? The reason why I'm using the United States is because I want to simplify this process. So we all know that the United States right now is a superpower of the world. Majority of the international trades are cleared in US dollars. And if you don't know, most of our agricultural products are traded at a place called Chicago Mercantile Exchange, which is a commodity market that does all the tradings of our daily bread. So in a way, this country is holding the pulse of the world in terms of what we do and what we eat. And also, most of the technology platforms we use today, including YouTube, is in the United States. So the ups and downs of this country will help us understand the ups and downs of this world and help us understand where we're going. In order to study the United States, I want to introduce the birth chart of this country. Actually, there are quite a few different versions of the United States birth chart circulating on the internet. It's very hard to determine which one to use because they're vastly different. Why? It's because, nobody really knows at what exact moment was this country born. We all know that it's July 4th, 1776. The date is fine, but it's the time. There is no real birth certificate of the country, right? The birth chart I'm using is based on the research of Ron Holland. He is an astrologer that studies history, and he actually went into the historical documents. He actually studied the journal of the U.S. Congress, and according to him, the U.S. was probably born around 11:15 a.m. And there are other people who believe that it's sometime in the afternoon. I don't want to go too much into arguing that. I want to stick to this one because I feel like this birth chart also can be validated through different historical events of this country. If you look at this birth chart, I feel like it fits the energy, the culture of this country quite well. The sun is in the 10th house. According to mundane astrology, the 10th house is really the path to success for this country. So the sun is in 10th house is a very good placement for the United States. That explains how, this quite young nation was able to quickly rise to success and started to become a superpower of the world in just a couple hundred years. And also we see that the sun is in Cancer. Cancer is a very loving sign. It's protective. That explains why so many people come into this country looking for shelter, looking for freedom. And also the sun and the Jupiter are quite close, and the Jupiter and Mercury are in conjunction. It's all giving positive energy to this country. And if you look at where the moon is, the moon of the United States is in the 5th house. That's where the moon belongs. That's the house of the people. So the people in astrology is represented by the moon, and the moon is in the right place. It shows that there is some comfort related to being a citizen of this country. You do have a quite good and comfortable life because of where the moon is located. And also the moon is in the sign of Aquarius. Aquarius is the sign of innovation, creativity. That's why internet was born in the United States, right? The smartphone was born in the United States because people in this country are not afraid of asking hard questions and creating new ideas, and also putting their new ideas across. And one thing I want to focus on this chart is the Saturn on the US chart. Saturn is a planet that the most traditional astrologers don't like because they think that Saturn brings bad luck or restriction. However, I think Saturn actually represents serious work and a sense of reality. If you don't have Saturn in a powerful position, you could be a very airy person without a sense of reality, and you could go crazy, right? So Saturn is not really a bad player. On the US chart, Saturn is in the first house, which means that the United States is a very powerful nation and people can be afraid of it, and also it can show that the country has a very strong, powerful military. It all fits in the image of the United States, right? If you look at this birth chart, it's almost like someone with deep understanding of astrology decided when this new country should be born. I think the founding of the United States is really a divine masterpiece. It is definitely divinely inspired. So we just talked about all the positive aspects, and if we stop the discussion here, you may think that this is a country with no problems. Not at all. No matter how great your birth chart is, you're always being challenged by the incoming energy, the transiting energy, the change of the universe. So in a way, studying the astrology is not about studying the birth chart. It's more about understanding how you weather the storm, because the storm is everywhere. What I want to kind of zoom in on is the placement of Pluto. Pluto is in the fourth house. The fourth house is the house of the land, a sense of homeland, a sense of security. So the first house is a sense of superficial security, which is the super strong military of the United States, right? And the fourth house is actually the deeper sense of security. That's kind of inner security. Right now, the US is being challenged by the Pluto transition. When the US was founded, Pluto was in Capricorn, and it takes Pluto 250 years to make a circle and return to where it was. So since the 1760s, 1770s, we haven't seen Pluto in this position. And in 2022, the US will experience an exact Pluto return, meaning at that time, the position of Pluto in 2022 will be the exact position of where Pluto was in 1776. And this is a very, very powerful energy because this is the very first time this country is experiencing this. Every time when you experience a Pluto return, it always brings about deep, deep soul searching, deep transformation. And as individuals, we never experience a Pluto return, right? Because we don't live long enough. But we have a very similar phenomena called Saturn return. You can look at where was your Saturn when you were born and look at when Saturn will come back to that position. Usually that happens around age 29 to 30, and then again, 59 to 60. And that also coincides with the cycle of Chinese astrology. We have time to talk about that in a different video. What is the time of a Pluto return, or on a personal level, a Saturn return? It's a time to take a very, very hard test. And also it's a time for revealing the score of your test, okay? So usually, it takes 250 years for the universe to observe a country and see how it has been doing. In 1776, the US was founded based on some principles, right? Like liberty, freedom, pursuit of happiness for everyone. Now, these all seem like great words, but are they really implemented in this country? So after 250 years, the universe is again asking us the question. I think this question is not just being asked to the United States, but also to the whole world. Are we really upholding these values that the universe gave us, promising us a great future? And now it's time to come back and review this, right? How are we doing? Are we still in alignment with these values? So that is the key question. And this actually has been in our life since 2008 when Pluto entered Capricorn. This energy doesn't just start at the exact point of the Pluto return of the US. It takes 20 years to manifest. So in 2008, when Pluto entered Capricorn, this question has been raised over and over. And now it's gonna take Pluto all the way till 2024 to leave Capricorn. Now, we have all this time to take the test. We are in the process of taking this test. That's why we're experiencing this pandemic. That's why we're experiencing a lot of shifts in our world. But I believe that whether we pass or fail has not been revealed all the way until 2024. That's why, I always say that this year we may see a glimpse of the future, but the real future comes in around that time, 2024. So you may be asking, does that mean that after the Pluto return, the US will cease to be a superpower? I think the answer to that question is still in the manifestation process. We have other cultures that have been around much longer than the United States. For example, if you look at Chinese history, there's hardly any Chinese dynasties that lasted longer than 250 years. The majority of them don't pass the test. However, there are also other dynasties that follow a completely different path. For example, the United Kingdom, they've been through a few of these Pluto returns, and somehow, certain Pluto returns strengthened them and made them a superpower at that time. I guess the question the universe is asking the US and the whole world is, what kind of future are you creating? Going forward, I think Pluto is moving to Aquarius. Aquarius is not a sign for a specific superpower, but rather the sign of humanity. So I think Pluto is taking us to a new golden age where, it doesn't matter if the US is a superpower or not, because, we want the entire world to be empowered, not just a specific country. Once we go into the age of Aquarius, which coincides with Pluto entering Aquarius, I think we're going to see a lot of changes where, people are starting to come together. I think freedom will be restored, and we're going to experience a new phase of renewed prosperity. It's probably going to be based on a new system, something very different from what we're having now. So personally, I think that this Pluto return is a good thing for all of us because it's testing us, it's asking us to come back, to realign ourselves with the divine purpose of the United States and also the divine purpose of us living in this world. Interestingly, Aquarius on the US chart is in the house of entertainment. So I think, after 2024, everything will look less serious and more fun. I think also, entertainment industry will get its revival. Remember the last 20 years, Hollywood really has been they've been making a lot of money because, that's the power of Pluto. It's all about, making money. I think after Pluto goes into Aquarius, Hollywood will probably find new energy, find new creativity. When Pluto was in Capricorn, the big issue was about the government, corporations, the physical reality, the structure, and Pluto is slowly but surely tearing down all of that. And once we get out of this Pluto return, I think a lot of people will relocate because, Pluto is in the house of the land. And I think how we see different areas of the US is also going to change. We talk about, for example, New York is the financial center. For example, Silicon Valley is the center of the tech companies. Maybe that will all change. Maybe, physical locations will no longer matter. In a way, this is a result of the pandemic, right? So I think the pandemic is still a part of the divine plan. It's part of this Pluto return energy. It's really playing out in divine perfection, even though it doesn't look very good right now. So it all boils down to this key question the universe is asking us, both within the United States and all over the world. What do you choose? Do you choose love or do you choose fear? There are only two elements in the universe. One is love, one is fear. One is expansion, one is restriction. One is light, one is darkness. And the universe is just asking us, which one do we choose? And guess what? For many, many years, maybe we were focusing on something else, right? We were not focusing on this really important choice we have to make. And now the universe is giving us all of these crazy events to help us return to our center, to help us return to that one and only relationship that matters, which is our relationship with the universe, with God, with all that is, with love. So I am optimistic about our future. I think we'll choose the right thing, and also through these videos, I'm hoping to help you make the right choice, because it's not about the choice of the country or the world. It's a personal choice. When we all make the same choice together, the energy we send out to the universe will help us manifest an amazing golden age.